might have just heard, it is Friday Eve here on this first take.
Love it.
You like it, right? It just gets you festive, in the mood for the weekend. We are almost there.
People who look forward to the weekends are people who don't have to work on the weekends.
Yes.
Yes. So, what you want me to say?
But see, Friday Eve is good.
Are you working this weekend?
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
You
There's
are?
always something.
By the way, if I ever run for office...
Are you in a mood today?
I'm going to run,
I feel like you're
Molly,
in a mood today. Yes?
I'm going to run for office one day on a platform of Wednesdays off. I have a whole theory about this. Turn Monday and Tuesday into Thursday and Friday. Wednesday off, and then Thursday and Friday is great as always. And you compensate by adding 2 hours to each day of the work week. Longer hours during Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday.
I enjoy that.
That's my platform.
Let's move on.
But are you in a mood today? I need to know. You're okay?
I'm fine. It depends. It depends on whether or not y'all get on my nerves.
Well, that's the point, isn't it?
We already have. It's always good to see you, Stephen. All right, coming up. Rapper T.I. will be in the house. He has a new EP to tell us about, plus a lot of social issues and Atlanta sports to get into. Please stay tuned for that. But first, we begin with the Jets' Brandon Marshall and wide receivers uniting. Marshall came to the defense of Odell Beckham after Ben McAdoo criticized Beckham last week, saying that OBJ needed to be, quote, less of a distraction following a sideline outburst and a loss to the Redskins. Eli Manning said after Monday's loss to the Vikings that Beckham has to play smart after another heated display. Here's Marshall.
You know, those guys over there need to be really careful. Like, they don't need to be speaking out on their teammate. They need to keep that in-house because they can lose him, and I'm being honest. Like, they need to rally behind him and give him the support he needs and handle that stuff in-house, whether good or bad, because whether they like it or not, he's the best player on that team.
Max, do you like that Marshall said this?
Nope. And I love me some Brandon Marshall, and I agree with his point. As a Giants fan, I know why Coach is saying this, McAdoo, and Giants are saying this about Odell, but I think they can make the same point and couch it in language that makes it more supportive of Odell, that makes it more us against the world. And that's what Brandon Marshall's identifying, and he has I love listening to him opine about football. I think he's an excellent broadcaster, not only an elite wideout. But I know what you're doing here, Brandon. Stop. Oh, honestly, I'm just telling you because, you could. No, this is not Dez Bryant, who, a real rival of the Giants, the Cowboys. But Dez Bryant, when you hear him talk, he's talking as a receiver. Look, this is emotional. Receivers thrive on emotional. Maybe people don't understand. He's talking as a fellow receiver. I get the distinct impression here that Brandon Marshall is talking as a New York Jet, as an intercity rival, as a guy who's kind of throwing shade at the Giants, even though it's consistent. I know this is what makes it so dastardly and effective here, what he's doing, undercutting the Giants. Even though it's consistent with his philosophy, Brandon Marshall, you bring it up all the time, Stephen A. Boy, if he's your quarterback, if you're his quarterback, doesn't matter what you do or who you are, he's got your back. Brandon Marshall's all about team, defending his teammates, us against the world. But us against the world is also consistent with throwing shade at another team, particularly one that vies for the affection of the city in which you play. And here, I think he's actually trying to sow seeds of discontent with the Giants.
I think you're wrong. But I don't blame you for that because you're so preoccupied with the Giants that you may not have paid attention to a New York Jet who also happens to be a former Chicago Bear, who also happens to be a former Miami Dolphin, who also happens to be a former Denver Bronco. The fact of the matter is when you think about Brandon Marshall, the one thing that he's very, very, very serious about is when he talks about behavioral issues. All of that team stuff, NFL stuff goes right out the window when it comes to this guy on that particular issue. That's when he really gets deep. Now, I joke with him all the time about him wearing those pom-poms for his quarterback because God knows Jay Cutler should miss him because he didn't need a sports psychologist after being with Brandon Marshall because Brandon Marshall was Jay Cutler's own personal sports psychologist. He was the guy that lifted him up. He was the cheerleader. He was the mentor. He was everything to this guy because Jay Cutler had the ultimate dude that would go in the abyss to lift him out and elevate him to reality, okay, and relevancy rather. But when it comes to issues of anything mental, Brandon Marshall gets incredibly serious, very, very introspective, and he personalizes everything because he imagines the things that he had to endure. His troubled past had a lot to do with what he terms a mental illness. And he's spoken eloquently on this show and various other shows about that. He is very serious about it. He's not playing around. There's no ulterior motive. There's no agenda to it whatsoever. He really believes that Odell Beckham Jr. is emotionally, I don't want to say damaged or anything like that because I think that's too strong of a word, but he's somebody that needs that support right now. That's where Brandon Marshall is coming from, because and if you need to be concerned about anything, it's the seriousness with which Brandon Marshall is addressing it, Max, because what I suspect, I don't know because I have not spoken to Brandon Marshall about this. Last time I spoke to him was a few weeks ago. But Brandon Marshall, from me knowing him the way that I do, Brandon Marshall is sitting there and he's looking at Odell Beckham Jr. and he's saying, look, man, he's going through some things. He needs some support. Y'all don't need to be throwing him under the bus. You need to be there to uplift him. You need to be there to support him. That's where this is coming from.
If in fact that were the case, and I would like to believe you're right, I like Brandon Marshall.
I don't think you should like it, though.
I like Brandon Marshall a lot, as I said, as a TV broadcaster, not let alone, obviously, a tremendous receiver. But if that were the case and he believed that Odell Beckham was suffering from some kind of real emotional disturbance, then simply saying the team needs to support him in kind of vague terms, in other words, don't publicly criticize, is one thing. I think if he were coming at it from that point of view, he would say something like the team needs to offer him, you know, mental health support or otherwise more kind of approach the problem more seriously, not simply say, hey, the team doesn't need to be publicly criticizing.
Well, he's saying because a lot of times, usually guys that are troubled a bit emotionally, not mentally, but a bit emotionally, those are the kind of situations that really lead to their demise. When they feel like they have no support, there are certain people that need that support. Everybody can't, you know, I hate to personalize it, but everybody can't be me. I don't give a damn most of the time, so I'm a bit different. But somebody like an Odell Beckham Jr., a T.O. to a lesser degree in years past, and others, we come to find out that they have troubled history, troubled past. They've been damaged emotionally on a personal level in some way, shape, form, or fashion. And as a result, you need to support because you will lose them otherwise. What did Brandon Marshall say? Odell Beckham Jr. is your best player. He's an absolute stud. You protect that asset. You protect that investment. You allow it, you nurture it and allow it to grow. You don't give the impression that you're going to jump ship, and you can't act like you're just going to judge him on the same level you're going to judge everybody else because he's a bit different.
First of all, I think Brandon Marshall's actually being consistent because he's all about team, his team. But along the same lines, so it's not exactly hypocrisy, but along the same lines, a lot of the same people who feel, hey, a team shouldn't be talking about the player, the people who say maybe a player shouldn't be talking about another team. And especially painting an organization like the Giants, which has, since time immemorial, been run better than the Jets. It's a better organization than the Jets. They share the same town. The Giants are more popular, more successful.
But again,
their former players never badmouth them, etc.
Right.
You're playing for the Jets, throwing that shade at the Giants.
But you're thinking about him as a football player throwing shade at a football organization. He's looking at it as a personal individual with some emotional and mental issues from his past who could potentially relate to what Odell Beckham Jr. is going through because he's seeing something that they may not be seeing, and he's attacking it from a deeper level, which surprises me that you haven't picked up on since the philosopher that you are as deep as you can go.
I thought Dez was doing that. In fact,
Dez. Dez more so than Brandon Marshall.
I thought Dez was, even as a divisional rival, which is, you know, at least as big as an intercity rival, right? I thought he was really just talking from the point of view of a receiver, like, look, this is an emotional.
He was.
I thought Brandon Marshall was talking more about the Giants' response. And let me tell you why. Normally, like, even though I still don't like the way the Giants are being a little bit overly negative and not couching their language in terms that makes it seem like it's them against the world, that it's an in-house problem. The difference here is that Odell, and this was the turning point for me on this issue, Odell gets a warning. He was right. He got hit late. He got hit out of bounds. He turns to the ref to complain. The ref missed the call. And then he complaining cost the team 15 yards. Odell's complaint about a missed call cost the team 15 yards. That, I'm like, okay, I get it. Odell, calm down, but I get it. On the very next play, he looks for contact out of bounds as his own personal payback because the refs aren't taking care of him, and it could have and probably should have gotten him tossed. At that point, to me, the player's actually hurting the team. Now, Des Bryant, when he's throwing those fits on the sidelines, everyone got on him. I actually defended him because I'm like, wait a minute. He's not costing you field position.
What does any of this have to do with Brandon Marshall?
He's not costing you field position here. He's just exhorting his teammates on to better play. What I'm saying is Brandon Marshall being critical of the Giants for being critical of Odell is a little different because Odell actually is in a position where he's starting to cost the team or potentially cost the team.
But again, you're missing the point. Because what I'm saying about Brandon Marshall isn't taught. He didn't absolve Odell Beckham Jr. What he did was intimate that this dude may have some issues, and there's a level of sensitivity that the organization he plays for and the teammates he plays with may need to harness a bit of sensitivity towards, as opposed to sitting there and judging him on an equal playing field compared to everybody else when he's a different individual, not just as a player, but as a person because of whatever emotional hang-ups he may have.
If that's what he was doing, if in fact that's his intention, I'm all
saying,
for Brandon Marshall.
I'm saying, you're saying that you're just saying that he was calling out the Giants. And I'm saying it's not as simple as that because Brandon Marshall has a history that proves he's spoken about issues time and time again. It clearly transcends the world of sports when it comes to him.
Can I add one thing?
Sure.
Regardless of Odell Beckham's mental state or emotional issues or anything like that, I don't like the fact that the Giants are publicly talking about what's going on. That Ben McAdoo
Which means
is saying
you agree
he's a
with Brandon
distraction.
Marshall.
Yeah,
the first thing I said is the content of what he said I actually agree with.
That part of it is that I don't think that they should be talking about that publicly. You're a team, and it should be the you versus against the world mentality, and you're a family.
Well,
so why are you bringing that into the media and airing dirty laundry out?
We've discussed that. Everybody knows that the Giants were wrong to be calling him out. And not only that, I've made the case. This is an organization that's missed the playoffs 6 of the last 7 years. Talk about an organization that needs to be looking in the mirror instead of looking at one of its own players. Because Lord have mercy, long before Odell Beckham Jr. ever arrived, they were missing playoffs. Eli Manning, the quarterback position is the most important position on your field. He has played every single game for the last decade. And even though they won the Super Bowl, the other 6 years of the last 7, they have missed the playoffs.
And what if Odell Beckham went to the media and said, Eli, you need to stop throwing picks?
Right, absolutely right. By the way, the last time the Giants had, and these were not Odell Beckham Jr. talents, the Giants haven't had a talent like Odell Beckham Jr. since Lawrence Taylor was in his prime. Let's be very clear. He's different. However, they had kind of media sensation personalities and big production talent at positions, and as soon as they got rid of them, they won a couple Super Bowls, Jeremy Shockey and Tiki Barber. The Giants are not the kind of team that have had success with that kind of, with guys who create circus atmospheres, at least in terms of the media. They're not the Dallas Cowboys in that respect. They're much more Pittsburgh Steeler or New England Patriot kind of button-up, old school Northeast New England, family-owned franchise.
Let's go.
No question.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to a little baseball, shall we? Madison Bumgarner in the Giants outdueled Noah Syndergaard in the Mets to win the NL wildcard game and advance to face the Cubs in the NLDS. It was Bumgarner's 3rd career postseason shutout. He's the first pitcher in postseason history to throw multiple shutouts in a winner-take-all game. So one club is seeking its first World Series in 108 years, and another seeking its 4th since 2010. The Cubs and Giants get the NLDS underway Friday night at Wrigley. Max, how worried should Cubs fans be about the Giants?
Really worried. And Theo Epstein's done a great job in Chicago, like he did a great job in Boston. Once upon a time, I thought that he was, that they hired Bill James in Boston, and that's the reason they suddenly were different than everybody else. I predicted at the time that they would win 3 of the next 10 World Series, and I got it right on the 10th year on Around the Horn originally when they hired Bill James. And in fact, didn't give Theo Epstein enough credit. He's done, obviously, he's a brilliant head of baseball.
Yes, he is.
However, and they are young and athletic where they need to be, and they have hard-throwing strikeout pitchers, and they even acquired Aroldis Chapman to shore up that bullpen. All that's great. But here's the thing about the San Francisco Giants and Brian Sabean, who, by the way, was the head of Yankees scouting when they got Bernie Williams and Derek Jeter and Andy Pettitte and Jorge Posada and all those core guys, and then went to the Giants and has done a tremendous job over there. And they talk about Buster Posey and different core pieces that he has, but it comes down to Bumgarner. Here's the thing. Bumgarner has joined Curt Schilling, El Duque, Fernando Valenzuela, and a couple others as, like, say, the last 35 years, a different kind of postseason pitcher. This is not a guy like a Jack Morris or an Andy Pettitte who just remains his normal, excellent self in the postseason, sometimes does well, sometimes not as well. This is a guy who, like the first group of guys I mentioned, as good as he is in the regular season, seems to consistently get better in the playoffs. Now, why is that significant? You say, well, he just pitched. He's going to miss some starts here. Cueto's going to start, who had a great bounce-back year with San Francisco, obviously a threat to beat whoever he's matched up against. Samardzija, who they picked up, not exactly off the scrap heap, but they gave him a $90 million contract when it looked like maybe he was on the downside of his career a little bit, maybe past his peak. His fastball is sitting in the mid-90s. That's really important in the postseason. You want hard throwers who miss bats. So they have a chance. They're going to be in those first two games. Then you get Bumgarner, because you have travel days and a best-of-5 series. Remember, best-of-7, you're more likely to get a result of the better team winning. Best-of-5, less likely to get the better team necessarily winning. This is the nature of baseball. Smaller sample sizes, you have what's called greater deviation from the mean, from what you would expect to happen. So Bumgarner pitches game 3. Then you have Cueto and Samardzija again. So you say, well, Bumgarner only gets one start. Let's not forget, the last time they won the World Series, Bumgarner had like
they pitched
5 innings out of the bullpen.
2 days rest.
On 2 days rest, 5 innings. He has done what Clayton Kershaw hasn't been able to do for the Dodgers. So now you have a situation where with Samardzija, who might pitch very well, I mean, as I said, he's throwing hard. He pitches game 5, and maybe he has a long, dominant game, but even if he doesn't, you can have a short leash with him, yank him, and put the guy on who's done it before, who's consistently so far done it in his excellent career. The Cubs have their work cut out for them, and Cubs fans should absolutely be nervous here.
They should be nervous, but at the same time, this is big time. They won 103 games. When you look at their pitching staff, you got Lester, you got Arrieta, you got Hendricks, you got Hammer, you got Lackey. They can get it done. Now, it's going to be pivotal, those first 2 games, make no mistake about it. And then you got Bumgarner going up against Arrieta in game 3. But I'm thinking about Rizzo. I'm thinking about Chris Bryant. I'm thinking about Addison Russell and these boys, the way that they've been playing. Listen, Madden is one of the most exceptional managers in the game of baseball. If the Cubs and Cubs fan base have anything to worry about, it's the tradition, it's the curse, it's the fact that they have never had more pressure on them than they do this year.
Right.
This year right here, we're looking at the Cubs. They are clearly the best team in baseball. There is no excuse for them to lose. They must win. If they don't win this year, you're going to have people who are convinced the curse is, not that they're not already convinced that the curse is real, but they're going to believe the curse is real. It is never going away. They are going to cry their hearts out, wondering whether or not they'll ever win again, because if you've got Epstein and you've got Madden, and then you look at the young studs that they have, I mean, we got here, look at this, man. We've got Rizzo, he's batting .292. 32 homers, 109 RBIs. We've got Bryant, .292 as well, 39 homers, 102 RBIs. Addison Russell's 21 home runs, even though he's got a .238 batting average. But if you look down the list, 292, 272, 292, 276, those kind of things. And then you look at the pitching. I don't care what San Francisco has. To me, it's Bumgarner or bust. If this man can't get, if you could possibly get to a game 5. It all depends on what happens in those first 2 games, because San Francisco has got to split. And by the way, I don't underestimate Posey, because Buster Posey, let me tell you something about him.
He's a future Hall of Famer, I think.
He's a future Hall of Famer. I think so, too. When you're talking about the sport of baseball, everyone looks at the pitcher, and they never attach the level of success to a catcher. When you think about Yadier Molina, think about the pitchers that have looked while he's catching behind. This guy, I mean, when you have a catcher who knows what he's doing, knows how to call a game, knows how to keep you composed and under control, I think Posey's an X factor here because of how he can mess with, how he could work with Cueto and those other guys. But I do believe, I really, really do believe, that when it comes to the Cubs, I think destiny has something to do with this. Those first 2 games are going to be pivotal. And here's the thing. Somehow, some way, somebody's got to reverse stuff on San Francisco. Let's think about why they lost last night. Syndergaard, Thor, for the New York Mets, was absolutely sensational. 7 scoreless innings, just 2 hits, 11 strikeouts. He was the man. I never, ever, Max, never liked Familia. Never liked him. I didn't like him when he blew 3 games last year. I never liked him because listen, he threw the sinker last night and missed the spot. It missed the spot. It was supposed to be low and inside. It missed the spot. He got smacked out of there, okay? Familia is not reliable. I don't give a damn about his 51 saves. It blew 6, but I don't give a damn about the 51 saves. I've never liked him in big moments. I don't trust him because control is always an issue with him. Syndergaard had to get out of there. Why he had to get out of there? Because San Francisco, they're masters at working the count, making you work, continuing, increasing your pitch count. And as a result, they got to get you out of there. Their whole goal was to get beyond Syndergaard.
The problem is,
I think with the Cubs, they've got to reverse it and do the same thing against San Fran, and particularly Bumgarner.
Especially since San Francisco, their soft spot is the bullpen. I mean, the Cubs addressed that. The Cubs gave up real prospects to the Yankees, real prospects, to get Aroldis Chapman. Yeah. Right? They recognized the one thing here, it's a high leverage moment in the history of our franchise, and the one thing we really need to shore up is the bullpen, and they got the best available guy and had to pay a king's ransom for it. But you mentioned Buster Posey. It's a great point. The fact that he's behind the plate helping the pitching staff. You look at Yadier Molina and a lot of great, even the Yankees dynasties with Yogi Berra. It's always a guy who knows how to handle the pitchers. You know, Johnny Bench, whoever you want to talk about. But like a lot of those guys, Molina later in his career, Buster Posey hits in the middle of the lineup. And when you got a guy who can hit and play a defensive position, that's an enormous strategic advantage. Because it's hard to find guys who play catcher, shortstop, second base, center field, who can hit like Buster Posey. That's a tremendous advantage. But you mentioned the Cubs offense. What you find in the postseason, what the sabermetricians have found, and the guys who crunch the numbers have found, that's right.
Okay.
What they have found is the same thing. They've corroborated conventional wisdom about the postseason. You know how everyone's always said, well, pitching and defense wins in the postseason. I was always thinking, well, what's the difference between if hitting also wins in the regular season, why wouldn't it win in the postseason too? But actually, they found that that's true. What wins in the postseason is defense and pitchers who miss
no question.
So when you talk about the RB, the guys, the productive middle of the order bats playing first base and third base, that is unlikely to be where this series is decided.
The sabermetrics and all of these guys notwithstanding.
Scouts say the same stuff.
Oh, no, I'm not poo-pooing it, especially with baseball, because I understand it's more applicable with baseball than it is with any other sport. What I'm saying to you is, let's not forget the human element here. Pressure matters. Pressure matters. And there has never been a Cubs franchise under more pressure than this one this year. And you also got to remember something, too. This is what it really comes down to, as I reiterated earlier. It's really simple. You got to win the first 2 games if you're the Cubs. You got to win the first 2 games. Because if you even split and they go back to San Fran and it's 1-1 with Bumgarner, okay, we're having the ball, we got problems. We got problems. And not only that, when you go back, whether it's 2-0 or 1-1 and Bumgarner's on the hill, it's not enough just to beat him, okay? You got to make sure you get it. You got to work that man. You got to make.
I'm glad you brought up pressure.
Bochy's got to make sure. I'm saying they got to make sure that Bochy gets him out of there, because if his pitch count is low, he's available for Game 5. Yep. Now you got problems.
Absolutely, got to try to get to that San Francisco bullpen, work the count. Don't be swinging early in the count. Although against right-handers, sometimes I think that's the best thing to do against Bumgarner. But you got to try to work the count. I'm glad you brought up pressure, because part of what Theo Epstein's been very good at is not simply assembling a team. And sabermetrics, by the way, doesn't just mean crunching numbers. It means a rational approach to baseball analysis.
We know.
You incorporate scouts. You
Professor Kellerman, we know that. Go ahead.
I'm not sure you do.
I do know.
Okay, well, I'm glad.
I do know.
Then I'm explaining it to the audience.
Bores me. So I don't want to bore audience with sabermetrics.
I know saber-tooth
Molly,
tigers.
sabermetrics is also, you incorporate scouting, you incorporate rational analysis. And Theo Epstein has done a great job of that. He did it with the Red Sox. Maybe he's done it with the Cubs. We'll see. But getting the kinds of guys who perform under pressure, you know, there's a whole debate going on about whether clutch hitting is a myth or not, and that debate goes on. But clutch pitching exists. There's evidence. Mariano Rivera, I mentioned Curt Schilling. And when Theo Epstein took over the Red Sox, Curt Schilling's personality and leading that staff and the consistent ability to elevate under pressure is probably the #1 reason they were able to win in 2004. The question is, who on this Cubs staff is that guy in a short series?
Last point, you missed this. The Cubs are the ones feeling the pressure. What you just pointed out San Francisco has no pressure.
Yeah.
Not just because they've won 3 world championships in 5 years, but because they're used to this. This doesn't faze them.
But the Red Sox were in the same position the Cubs are now. They hadn't won forever.
Time out. Yeah, I understand that. But that doesn't mean these Cubs, because remember, these Cubs were in the postseason last year and folded against the Mets. So they have
Same thing with the Red Sox in 04. They folded against the Yankees in 03.
I'm saying they've yet to prove it, Max. San Francisco has proven.
Just like the Yankees had. That's what I'm saying.
They've yet to prove it.
The Cubs haven't gotten over the hump the way the Red Sox did, because they didn't have a Curt Schilling.
Yes.
Who is Curt Schilling on the Cubs?
Thank you for explaining the sabermetrics. Appreciate that.
Who's Bumgarner on the Cubs?
I want to see the Cubbies get it done for Sweet Home Chicago.
That's right. Don't have them saying someone has to emerge.
Arguing with me about agreeing with
the association, your sweet spot. Up next, Kevin Durant says he's learning a lot about basketball now that he's in Golden State. Was this a veiled shot at OKC? We shall discuss it next.
First Take is presented by Bass Pro Shops. Your adventure starts here. And in part by Polaris, the world leader in off-road. Visit Polaris.com.
I'm so disgusted. I was watching the game last night, some of it. I couldn't take but so much of it. Kevin Durant has ruined the regular season. And everything is just ruined. It's just ruined. It's just ruined, okay? No answer whatsoever for the Golden State Warriors. They could put up 120 a night if they wanted to. Kevin Durant has ruined the regular season. Who wants to see Golden? I don't understand it. Man.
Don't you wish Stephen A. would tell us how he really feels? But Stephen A., you were very strong on Kevin Durant yesterday, calling his move to join the Warriors the weakest ever. Well, Durant and his new squad crushed the Clippers by 45 points in their first preseason game Tuesday, but Durant struggled at times during the game, telling ABC 7 Bay Area, "There's a lot I need to learn about the game of basketball. You know, I'm not as smart as I thought I was about the game. It's played a different way here than I was used to playing. I learned a lot, obviously, in my years in the league, but this is a different system, a different philosophy of basketball I am learning, so it is going to take some time." KD was also quick to point out that he wasn't taking a shot at the Thunder. It's not a knock on Oklahoma City. It's not a knock on my past teammates or that organization. I mean, it's different here. It's fun here. It's fun playing where I was before, but that book is closed. Are you buying that this is not a shot at Oklahoma City?
Hell no. It absolutely was a shot at Oklahoma City. And it was a shot at Oklahoma City because he has to know that's how it's going to be interpreted no matter what he says because of what he has done. So if he's saying that's not what his intent is, I think Kevin Durant is a classy, high-caliber human being. But the bottom line is that he's also smart enough to know that no matter how you try to gloss over it, that's how it's going to be interpreted. Let's go back and dissect the quotes.
Okay.
You know, it's different here. It's more fun, okay? I'm learning things I did not know. Kevin Durant is a career 27.4 point per game scorer who shoots 48% from the field, okay? 38% from three-point range. His career averages are 27, 7, and 4. Over the last 6 or 7 years, I'm sorry. Are you ready for this, Max?
Yep.
Let's go back to 2008. Sure. It's almost 8 years. 25.3 points per game he averaged in 2008, 2009. 25, 30, 27, 28, 28, 32. Then he got hurt for the 27 games he played in 2014, 2015. 25.4. Last year he averaged 28.2. He is a former league MVP. He has been to the finals. He was coached by Scott Brooks. And oh, by the way, everybody, no knock against Steve Kerr, because Steve Kerr is an exceptional coach and actually a good man, too. But let me be very, very clear. Billy Donovan's no slouch. Billy Donovan's a two-time national champion as a coach. Billy Donovan coached his first year in the NBA last year, Max. Where did Oklahoma City go? Game 7 of the NBA Finals.
You an upgrade over Scotty Brooks, let's be honest.
And let me also say this to Kevin Durant. I don't want to hear anything about Billy Donovan. Nothing. Do you know why? Because if your coach and your franchise gets you, who
Who is Kevin Durant, one of the top 3 players on the planet. He is a superstar. They got you to 3-1 in a conference finals. What you talking to me about coaching for? For what? Why are we having a conversation about coaching? Isn't it that at that point where it comes down to you? I mean, if there was ever a moment, I'm saying let's just throw it out the window, Max. I won't even argue with any point that somebody makes about, well, Golden State's are better, the system, the distribution of the basketball. You don't know who's going to take the last shot. But I'm saying forget all of that. Work with me, Max Kellerman, for this one moment.
You got it.
I sit up here and I go like this. Hey, Max, you're a superstar basketball player. One of the top 3 players on the planet. 6'10", 7'6" wingspan, can pull up from 30, got a handle, mid-range game, shoot free throws, and I've gotten you to a point where you are 3-1 in a conference finals. What are you talking to me about coaching for? You got one game. One game. If I covered, before I let you go, Max, let me say this to America right here. This is where I come from.
I love this passion.
This is where I come from.
Okay.
When we talk about basketball, would you mind, Max, if I gave you a little bit of my history?
Please do.
The great John McClendon, God rest his wonderful soul, was just posthumously inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. He was my basketball coach, Clarence Big House Games' mentor. The 2 of them together used to sit me down and teach me the game of basketball when I played.
Kind of like me debating with you.
Not at all. Here's right there.
It's happening again.
When I first came into this business as a reporter, my first job was covering John Chaney. My second job was when I was covering the NBA. My first 6 years was covering Larry Brown. So let me give you the names. John McClendon, Clarence Big House Gaines, John Chaney, and then Larry Brown. Forget what I know about basketball, about watching, playing, being on a basketball scholarship, et cetera, et cetera. I was taught by historians, okay? So we got that going on. I bring all of that up to say to you that I think when you have a superstar player, there's only but so much a coach can do. At some point in time, even the great Phil Jackson, with 11 rings, am I lying, Max? Did he not go to Michael Jordan on a few occasions to go like this? Here, take me there. Did he not go to Kobe? Kobe. Was that Phil Jackson that coached the Lakers to the first championship against the Indiana Pacers when Shaq got into foul trouble? Or was it Kobe that went up to the big fella? I got you, big dog. The ball is it's my time now. You understand? I got you. Don't even worry about it. I'm saying, where was Kevin Durant? So my point is, I don't want to hear this stuff about a better situation. It may very well be. It's not applicable to you, and you damn well know it. So when you make a statement like that, regardless of how it's interpreted, you're calling out Oklahoma City.
Let me just start by saying that was a brilliant point. And it's actually going to change my response. I still have a response, but it's going to change it. I was going to say, look, if someone comes from the Bengals, good organization, make the playoffs every year, and they wind up on the Patriots, and they say, boy, I didn't even know football. This is amazing. They're not necessarily throwing shade at the Bengals. They're simply saying, I am now at the best. Mm-hmm. And the Golden State Warriors are the best, you can say, other than the Cavs, except they don't, there's only one LeBron James. Of everyone not named LeBron, of any team that doesn't have a guy named LeBron James on it, they are the best run franchise right now. So I'd say it's not throwing shade, but I want to address your point because I think it's that brilliant. The bottom line is, forget about up 3-1. Because Kobe Bryant was once up 3-1 against the Suns.
Lost.
And then it was 3-3. And Jim Lampley and I bet dinner. I bet on Kobe. Because I thought like you thought. I said, hey, the history of the NBA is if you get to a Game 7, give me the team with the best player on the floor. You think Kobe Bryant's going out like that? And Jim bet me a dinner. And he thought the superior system would beat the superior player. And I lost that dinner. I took Jim out to dinner.
But that's not why you lost.
Well, Kobe was showing everyone how he could bounce pass in Game 7.
Kobe decided he got tired of the noise and said, y'all, damn it, y'all go ahead and shoot.
Okay, but still, the outcome is the outcome.
Right.
That's the one thing I hold against Kobe in his career on the court. Like, Kobe, cost me a dinner. Okay. what Kevin Durant is saying here, here's my real response to your brilliant point. And by the way, when Stephen A. Smith says something about basketball, like, yeah, he is throwing shade, I realize the whole NBA, we see it all day. The whole NBA texts this guy, in case you're wondering. So he's privy to information that all of us are not privy, none of us are privy to all of that information, and that helps inform your opinion. So I realize that I'm talking to that guy about this topic. Nevertheless, I don't think he is throwing shade, because Durant with the Warriors is saying, and his whole attitude seems to be, that he is going to defy the history of the NBA. That you and I both know, Stephen A., this is not international basketball or college basketball. The NBA has always been different, even as they change the rules. As much as they try to change it, the bottom line is, if the best player in the world or the best player on the court, forget about being down 3-1, Stephen A., it was a tight game with a minute left, and Kevin Durant wasn't the best player on the court in Game 7, even though he should be. The best player on the court wins that game. That's the argument for Bill Russell. 21-0 in deciding games, high school, college, and the pros. Don't tell me about how this guy's better than Bill Russell and that guy until Michael Jordan. When the chips were on the line, his team never lost the Game 7. He was always the best. That means something. That's not Durant. And Durant seems to me to be in the middle of a career where he's trying to prove he doesn't have to have that Kobe Bryant killer, prize fighter, this is a one-on-one game mentality. He doesn't need. What he can do is fit into a system, play the right way, and let the chips fall where they may. And I think that's what he's saying here. Yep. Not I'm beating my chest, I'm the best, I'm proving it. He's saying I want to fit into a team where they play basketball the way I think it should be played.
What I'm saying to you is no one will refute what you just said about Kevin Durant. What they're saying is it's still problematic. In the NBA, for example, and I'll shut it down by saying this. Kevin Durant wants to fit in. He wants to be just a cog in the wheel, per se. That's what he wants to do. Does his paycheck say that? When he goes and he's looking to get paid, does he say, I want to get paid the same as everybody else? Does he say that I want to be like everybody else? You got a $300+ million endorsement deal. You got the max contract. You've got the stuff that says, I am a superstar, I am elite, that's how I want to be recognized. Until you get the check, then you want to be like everybody else. And I'm saying to you, that's the difference. That is the difference. That's where it really, really counts. At some point, I have no problem with him wanting to be with the team or whatever the case may be. You know me, I only have a problem with him going to the team that beat him. Not the fact that he left Oklahoma City. But make no mistake about it. Intent or not, you know that's going to be interpreted as you point to Oklahoma City. You know that.
His point is, I'm not going to be the guy you all want me to be. I'm going to be the guy I want to be. And by the way, if it costs him, not only in the way you're talking, but in the all-time comparisons, why is Larry Bird the greater player than Kevin Durant at this point? It's for what you're saying.
Okay.
Got to leave it there. Up next, we know Bill Belichick has Tom Brady's back. We'll fill you in on the latest loophole he's found for his quarterback. That convo is next. Strong stuff, gentlemen. Meanwhile, Bill Belichick found a loophole for Tom Brady to avoid media this week, according to Yahoo Sports. The NFL has provided the Patriots with an exemption, meaning the team doesn't have to officially add him to the active roster until Saturday. Therefore, he's not required to speak to the media. The team will have no media access on Saturday as they'll be traveling to Cleveland for Sunday's game. But Bill had to speak to the media, and this is what he had to say about Brady.
How do you relay to the team that Tom's return isn't a fix-all?
We all got to do our job. We all got to do our job better. We all got a lot of things to work on, and that's easy.
How are you feeling about getting Tom back? Do you feel like he can finally exhale?
I feel like we need to go out to Cleveland and play well in order to win. That's what we're going to try to do.
A lot of fans seem to think that the suspension, they're hoping the suspension, will sort of inspire Tom and the rest of the team to play even harder with more intensity. What do you think about that? Think that could be?
I think our team needs to prepare well this week and go out to play well against Cleveland in Cleveland. That's what we need to do.
You talked to Tom. How does he seem? Seem ready for? Does Tom seem ready for Cleveland physically, mentally, attitude-wise?
We'll go out and practice today and see where our whole team is. You have to ask Tom how he's personally feeling. That's something I can't answer.
kind of dressed it up there with the button down underneath the sweatshirt there. At least he's consistent, Max. Do you have a problem with him kind of dodging questions there and then Tom Brady not having to speak to the media?
I don't. And normally, this is what I usually say about Bill Belichick. This is from my greatest hits, volume 2. Some guys, I talk about like Marshawn Lynch can get away with stonewalling the media, and another player can't. I don't know why. It's because probably Marshawn Lynch has just something that I find charming, and I don't find the other guy charming. I feel the same way about Popovich and Belichick. Popovich doesn't give answers to the media, gives non-answer answers, and I find it charming for whatever reason. Belichick does it, and it doesn't come off the chart. I find it obnoxious, and I think he's shirking his responsibility to the media and all that, because there is some. You have to answer questions, and he frequently doesn't. For example, when he was asked about Garoppolo's injury, he gave non-answer answers. I'm going to contrast this to what he just did. He said, well, the trainers do their job, and I'm the coach. I coach the team. Wait a minute, Bill. That's the coach. That's not the same thing. The trainer can tell you he's cleared to play, but what's the long-term ramifications?
So you do have a problem with that?
Hold on. What's the long-term ramifications? If he's cleared to play now and I play him, is he much more likely to get hurt? If he's hurt the second time, is it worse? In other words, a head coach has to balance the short-term interest with the long-term interest of the season. So to say that the training staff does their thing, I do my thing, that's a disingenuous non-answer. For that, I criticized him. However, for this, I can't criticize him. He's using a loophole to get Brady out of having to talk to the media, which I'm sure Tom Brady appreciates. And look at questions he's asked. Can you exhale now that Tom Brady is back? What kind of question is that, really? How he answers that, we got to get ready for Cleveland. Can Brady's return inspire the team to play better? We have to get ready for Cleveland. The reason the Patriots have been the best organization in football since Bill Belichick took over, almost an unbroken stretch, it's an unbelievable dynasty in the modern NFL, is because he's smarter, yes. He is better prepared with more attention to detail. For example, just use that loophole to get Tom Brady out of talking to the media. He has bigger guts. He goes for it on fourth down in situations where other coaches won't. And he always stays focused at the task at hand. The Patriots are 3-1 without Tom Brady. They're going to play a very bad Cleveland team. And he won't entertain for a second even thinking about answering the question, will Brady make you better? He, and therefore his team, is focused on one thing: beating Cleveland. That's why they win 12, 13 games every single year. That's why they win Super Bowls, because they are focused at the task at hand. And for this press conference, I cannot blame Bill Belichick.
Well, I'm a lot quicker than you in getting to the point and saying this. Bill Belichick is wrong in this particular situation, because it's not just about Tom Brady and it's not just about Cleveland. It's about all that has happened. And what happens is that if you're Bill Belichick, according to my sources, what I reported months ago, remember, there was this belief that he might have had something to do with Deflategate. And so when you hearken back to Spygate based on 2007, the belief is that the NFL told Bill Belichick and the Patriots that if you are found to have been egregious in any kind of actions that threaten the integrity of the game, you will be banned. And so when you take that into consideration, one must ask themselves, why do you tweak the NFL? Why do you tweak the media in such a way that you're inviting stuff to come your way? Because, again, it spells trouble. I don't blame Bill Belichick for much. I'm a fan of his. I'm a native New Yorker, and I think he's phenomenal. I wish he had stayed with the Jets. I think he's a phenomenal coach, and it's not just because of Tom Brady, regardless of what his record is without Tom Brady, which is barely at 500. But I will tell you this. When I think about Bill Belichick, I find myself saying, damn, it's the same thing that you'd say to a player or anything else. Is that really, really necessary? You've got the media there. They're asking you questions, and you want to sit up there and talk about, look at what kind of questions they ask? Well, look at the kind of position they're in. They're essentially at the mercy of the team. You're trying to get quotes. People have jobs to do or whatever. He has no sensitivity to that whatsoever. And the only problem that I have with that is I get tired of coaches in all sports acting like people just want the games. That's not true.
because people want the off-day stories too, especially in the NFL because you only get one game a week. So to really elevate the interest of the sport, what you do on those off days matter. You're sitting there and you're using a loophole to make sure that Tom Brady isn't available because he's not on the roster until Saturday. That way he doesn't have to address the media during the week. Well, you're prolonging it. So ultimately, when he gets in front of the media, they're going to bombard him with those questions. What's the problem? Get it over with. It's like you go out of your way to distance yourself and to exacerbate situations and to elevate the level of shrapnel of criticism that may go your way. And why? For what? Because all of this is part of your job. There is no contract involving a player or a coach that simply says you have to just play or coach. You have obligations. And even though he stood up there before the media and he says we're moving on to Cleveland, if it were me in that press conference, let me tell you the kind of question that I would have asked him. I would have said, Coach, let me ask you this. Is there something about the game going on in Cleveland that you're interested in discussing? Because the same kind of answers that he gave in terms of we're moving on to Cleveland, he would have given that if they didn't ask him about Tom Brady, if they didn't ask him about the past, if they didn't ask him about what they were going through in order to prepare for Tom Brady's return. He would have answered it the same. They would have said, could you talk to us about the Cleveland Browns? What are you seeing for the Cleveland Browns? You know, so how do you plan on going up? He would have answered the same exact way.
You ready to lose this debate right now? Here's the thing. Nothing you're saying is wrong right there. Of course, that's true. Fans want stories. That's why the media has access to them. It helps pay their salaries because it's not just the game. It's the characters involved. We sell sports as narrative.
Show.
That's what it is. Here are the characters. Here's what's at stake. That's why we're interested. And he's making it harder for people to do their jobs and sell the sport. That's true. But here it is, Stephen A. Ask Patriots fans. Would you rather get more interesting stories during the week, or would you rather win Super Bowls? Because Bill Belichick's way, hyper-focused on the next opponent, and that is all, works better than every other coach's way.
That's your argument.
And you said he's 500 without Tom Brady since he became a great head coach
he's phenomenal.
In New England.
Right.
Without Tom Brady, their winning percentage is virtually the same as with Tom Brady.
Right, but there was a coaching job that he had before Tom Brady. And
that was before he was in his prime as a head coach.
That's hard, though, because he could have been learning.
I make the same argument against folks who go at him, but I'm just saying that happens to be factually correct. Yep. What I'm saying to you, getting back to your point, is this. They're not diametrically opposed, nor you don't have to look at it and say, okay, if I did my job here, that means I'm compromising my ability to do what I'm supposed to do in order to win Super Bowls. It's a legitimate argument to be made that the Patriots fan base could actually have both. All I'm saying is when you are Bill Belichick and you wonder about the eye of the NFL and the kind of unnecessary trouble they seem to have aimed in your direction, maybe, just maybe, if you were a bit more, cooperative in some respects, you wouldn't have some of the troubles
you're arguing that the best is imperfect. Of course, nothing's perfect. If Michael Jordan would have been a better three-point shooter, he'd have been even better.
Well, Max,
but he was the best. Bill Belichick, his system works better than everyone else's.
If that's your argument that nothing's perfect, we might as well do away with all debate shows.
Why is that?
Because again, I can make that argument about anything we say. Who the hell cares? We know everybody's not. We know everything's not perfect.
Being imperfect is one thing. My argument is not that. It's that he is the best by so far that to argue that he could be even better is not really the argument, because who's to say that that would be consistent with his overall philosophy that has resulted in this level of success?
That's not my point. My point is you don't have to be that way to be as great as he is.
Oh, you're claiming that. That is your point.
That's his motto.
Maybe he thinks you do.
Ignore the noise, limit distractions. Maybe he has to do that to succeed.
But nobody's saying eliminate the noise or whatever the case may be. I'm saying you're standing up there anyway.
I get it, but I'm saying maybe that will detract from his focus, so that's why he chooses not to.
Forget it, y'all.
These questions did not require elaboration.
I knew you were annoyed at us.
I am annoyed. I am annoyed because that makes no sense. The point is that if you're standing up there anyway.
I get it.
Why? Why? I mean, for what?
Because maybe that's how he focuses. It's the Patriot way.
Remember, if a player did that, what would we be saying?
It depends how they did it. I just brought up Marshawn Lynch.
My experience.
As long as he's still punching in the end zone, I don't care.
My experience, I have seen players excoriated for conducting themselves in similar fashion. I didn't hear everybody. I'm trying to tell
At
y'all
least
right.
he's consistent, though. He
Yeah,
does the
wait a
same
minute.
deal
But
every time.
I started by bringing that up. There are some who can get away with it. I actually don't think Bill Belichick can. I don't think his personality is such that he sells it as charming the way Popovich does, the way Marshawn Lynch did. Some players and coaches get away with it. They have the personality to pull it off. Some don't. I think he actually doesn't. However, that is all wiped away by the fact that his way of doing things is demonstrably superior to every other coach's in the last 15 years. So whether or not it's charming, it works.
On the field.
Yes, on the field.
We're not
As
talking
Patriots
about on the
fans,
field.
you're saying it's not
We're not
mutually.
talking about on
We can do this all day.
You're
guys.
saying it's not
We're not.
mutually exclusive, that you can have this and that.
Max, you could talk for the next 10 minutes and explain it. It doesn't change the fact
But Bill
that
Belichick's not saying
that nothing that he does
agree.
there has anything to do with what we're talking about. We're talking about him is standing before the media. That's what he's doing.
Making sure his team is focused on the next game.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. His team is back there focused. You're standing in front of the media.
They're focused because the only quotes they see from their head coach is Cleveland, Cleveland,
Really?
Cleveland, Cleveland. So they think Cleveland.
And they follow his
Really?
lead.
Really? That's what it is? So they wouldn't be that way if he answered questions.
No, look around the league.
Okay.
We don't know because we haven't seen it.
Okay.
King James opened up his preseason last night. He played 13 minutes, scored 7 points, had 6 assists, and the Cavs' 117-102 win over the Magic. This is what he had to say about his performance after the game.
Just continue to, try to be as much a complete player as I can be, and I feel like there's no spot on the floor where I, can't succeed at, from in the paint, to the perimeter, just continue to expand my game while I can and go out there and have my team win. And, it was fun to get back out there tonight.
Max.
Yeah.
How long can LeBron stay the best player on the planet?
I said that he's in decline the other day, and I believe he is. But he is falling from such absurd Michael Jordan-esque heights that even in decline, it's still his era. He's still better than everybody else, Stephen A. And he's an Iron Man, too. He doesn't miss playoff games every year, going to the finals, win or lose. I mean, that's a lot of extra games, playing in the Olympics some years, the whole thing, all the obligations on him. And yet he plays in almost every game. When he needs a little rest in the regular season, he takes it, but he's always ready for the playoffs. At this rate of decline, you don't even say, I see decline here physically. At this rate of decline, I don't know if you can really say much more than 3 years out. How do you really predict more than 3 years out, let's say? But I don't see where anyone overtakes him in the next 3 years. He's not that much older than KD or Westbrook or anyone like that, or Steph Curry, where I see them ever catching him. I'm reminded to go use it, when Jose Reyes was coming up at shortstop with the Mets and Derek Jeter was with the Yankees. The whole question is, when's Reyes going to get better than Jeter? And sure, at the very end, when Jeter couldn't play anymore, he was. But basically, the answer was never. Until the year before Jeter retired, he was always better. As good as Reyes was, Jeter's just a better player. And I think this is the thing with LeBron. As good as Westbrook, Durant, and others, and Steph can be, I don't ever see them being better than LeBron James declining at this tiny little rate. His skills are so broad-based that he can evolve into a different even kind of player as he gets older and still be elite. The name I look to, the guy I look to that maybe could overtake him 3 or 4 years from now is Karl Anthony Towns, who in this NBA can do everything. Close out on shooters, switch on guys defensively, play the post, play defense in the post, shoot the three, score down low, grab rebounds, pass the ball. Maybe Karl Anthony Towns in 3 or 4 years. Otherwise, I think the answer to how long LeBron could be the best in the game is as long as he wants.
I think you're wrong. Let me say this. LeBron James, to me, definitely is the best player in the world. Couple of years or whatever. Could even be 3, like you said, with one exception. If the Golden State Warriors win the championship, the person that can overtake him is Kevin Durant. When you look at Kevin Durant, what do we have? What's his biggest Achilles heel in the eyes of those watching him? Nobody questions his skill set. Nobody questions how surreal he is. We all universally recognize that Kevin Durant is one of the top 3 players on the planet. The kryptonite is LeBron. Matter of fact, I know some cats covering the NBA that believe that's why he didn't go to the East, because he didn't want to go up against LeBron. Now, I don't know whether that's true or not, but that's what they've said to me. So what I'm saying to you is that if he goes out west
and they win, and he's one of the pivotal reasons why, and there's no reason to believe that he won't be, then all of a sudden we're going to have to look at him differently, because even though he went to Golden State and rode the coattails of an already championship squad, the bottom line is if he's a pivotal component in it all, we're going to have to look at him because his skill set along with his averages are going to come into play. When you bring up Karl Anthony Towns, boy, was I wrong about him. I thought he would be good. I didn't have any idea he would be this good. As far as I'm concerned, John Calipari hid him, okay, which John Calipari laughs at me about all the time because he did hide him, okay? But Karl Anthony Towns is special. But I'm not giving him the edge over Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis was hurt last year. He was hurt last year. It doesn't count. He was hurt. In New Orleans right now, and I like Alvin Gentry as a person, exceptional basketball mind, did a great job as a lead assistant in Golden State. He's not getting that love from some of his contemporaries on the NBA level right now. I don't know whether it's ingratiating himself with players, not ingratiating himself well enough, whatever. But I respect Alvin Gentry, and I like him. But the point is, that roster that he thought he was going to have, it hasn't improved. He's got to rely on Anthony Davis, who has very little help. But if Anthony Davis got some help with what he brings to the table, Anthony Davis can be that dude.
I want to respond to 3 different things you just said.
Sure.
Okay. 1, KD going to the Warriors, in fact, was tacit acknowledgement, meaning unspoken acknowledgement, that LeBron James is too good for everybody else. That's what that was. The Warriors seeking KD, of course, you're always trying to get better. But as stacked as the Warriors are, they look at LeBron, they go, if he has any help at all, he's just too much. KD looks at LeBron and goes, not that guy. Can't do it. I need to go join the best team in the league to give us a shot. They're not necessarily a lock to beat Cleveland, but to give us a good shot against Cleveland.
By the way, he's wrong. I want to say for the record, had KD gone to New York with Melo,
nothing against LeBron. They got no wins against LeBron.
Let me tell you something right now. If KD and Melo were together, they could take LeBron.
Well, okay,
they could have taken
not
LeBron.
a chance. I don't think they have a shot.
Yes.
But okay,
Hey,
look.
but
hold on. That's one. That's one. 2, I don't think KD's ever going to be perceived that way, even if they win 80 games in the regular season, 80-2, and win the championship, because he will be, in terms of statistical analysis, he'll be sharing numbers with Steph and Clay. Clay, in fact, is the guy, when you look at the sets the Warriors want to run, Clay is the one who's designed to get the least defensive attention. He's going to get numbers. Steph's going to get numbers.
Wrong.
That's going to lower the averages. I'm not saying KD's not going to put up big numbers, but it ain't going to be 28 points a game. Okay, we'll see.
Still wrong.
3, Anthony Davis.
Yep.
If you took injury history out of it, yes, Anthony Davis would be even better than Karl Anthony Towns. He's performed at an incredibly high level in the NBA. But the guy is a lock to miss 20 games a season. He misses too many games. He's injury prone. We've seen that so far. And he came into the league needing to learn to stretch it out to shoot the 3. Karl Anthony Towns came into the league. They made sure in college he came into the league being able to shoot from downtown. So, in fact, to best take advantage of the modern NBA, it was Karl Anthony Towns, who, though I agree not as talented as Anthony Davis, but given Anthony Davis's injury history and Karl Anthony Towns' already formed skill set, I think, in fact, Karl Anthony Towns is the safer bet. And by the way, we didn't mention Kristaps Porzingis, who's 7'3".
Well, listen,
and in a couple of years, the East is just going to have to game plan around him.
With that. Don't mention him now. I mean, not when you got Anthony Davis and Karl. No, don't do that. And then not only that, when you think about Anthony Davis, he only missed about 20 games the last couple of years.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm just saying, but a lot of those times they take some games off during the. Trust me on this. They take games off even when they're not injured. So let's keep that in mind. Last point. When you sit up there and you talk about Kevin Durant and his stats, you know why the stats don't mean anything when it comes to Kevin Durant, no matter how much his numbers will drop? Because he spent 9 years proving what he can do offensively. So now you're stepping back because of the system and the personnel. It's not a matter. No one questions what he can do offensively. You would be right if Kevin Durant didn't have a career 27.4 point per game average.
He's also joining a 73-win team.
I'm just
how much credit's he going to get for that?
I'm just saying,
He's already proven what he can do. So anything he does to step back, sort of like what you say about Bosch. Remember, Bosch comes from Toronto to Miami. He steps
People
back.
killed him for that.
But they were wrong.
I agree, they're being wrong, but that's the
Some
perception.
days we agree on things. Today's not one of those days. And also, someone at this desk picks the Cardinals to go to the Super Bowl. I don't know who that could be. They're not looking so hot this season, so it's me, Stephen A. Don't worry, not accusing you of that. And tonight, it could get worse as Carson Palmer will be out with a concussion. Can they overcome it? After suffering a concussion in Sunday's game against the Rams, Carson Palmer has been ruled out tonight against the 49ers. Drew Stanton will start in his place. Since 1990, teams that have started the season 1-4 have made the playoffs 8% of the time, including 2 teams last season. Stephen A., would you call this a must-win for the Cardinals tonight?
I would. I would, because of the NFL season, because of the success rate of those who start 1-4, like you said, 8%, and more importantly, because of the way they've looked, Max. I mean, they're not going to have Carson Palmer tonight. He's going through the concussion protocol. He's not going to play. Drew Stanton is your guy. Good luck with that, even though he is playing against Blaine Gabbert. In the end, what it comes down to, I'm just looking at their schedule. After this, they've got the Jets coming up in Seattle, both home games, but chances are they'll lose at least one of them. They've got a road game to revisit the NFC Championship game against Carolina, who's now in desperate straits, and I think they'll be ready for that game. You've got San Francisco again. Then you've got road games at Minnesota and at Atlanta before playing at home against Washington. And then you close out the season with Miami, New Orleans, Seattle, and Los Angeles. I mean, those are potential losses there. And I think that, you know, they could find themselves in a situation where after this, if they lose and they're 1-4, they could go 500 the rest of the way, or 6-5 over their last 11 games. Well, where that's going to leave them? That's going to leave them with a 7-9 season. That's not going to get it done. So I think the level of urgency has definitely touched them. You're hearing Bruce Arians talk about how the team needs to improve, needs to get better. The general manager is saying the same thing. Defensively, they rank 11th, but 20th against the run. Their offense is 15th with the rush. They don't seem to be themselves. They seem to be a shell of themselves, and the luster has basically dimmed when it comes to Bruce Arians. They need to win tonight. You lose to San Francisco and Chip Kelly, who has proven every week that this college stuff don't work on a pro level. You do this. You lose to San Francisco, it ain't going to get much better for you.
Yesterday I was thinking about this game, and I was thinking, you know, yeah, this is in week 5, like you're going to go 1-4. I can't believe it's this early and we're saying this, but it's a must-win game. If they lose, they're not going to make the playoffs. But then in preparing for this show today, Stephen A., I looked at it more closely, and I have reversed my decision about this. Oh, Lord. I do not think this is a must-win game. Not because of anything you identified in terms of the struggles they're having. They are. They lost 2 offensive linemen in the offseason, particularly at right tackle. They've had a problem. And Carson Palmer, he's not playing. And the thing about Palmer is he really does need time. When he was coming on like a house on fire early in his career, he's Tom Brady, he's Peyton Manning. He got good protection. As soon as that broke down, Carson Palmer, not so much. He's not the most mobile fellow in the world. At any rate, Drew Stanton's pretty good for a backup, but still is not a starting quarterback. You look at so yes, they're in trouble. If you lose to San Francisco, that's a game you really need to win when you start 1-3. How do you make the playoffs? Well, I can go over that same schedule, Stephen A., and say I could see where they go 8-4 the rest of the way. I mean, Seattle is a tough game, but that's a divisional rivalry. Carolina's had the same kind of problems that the Cardinals have had so far this year. Atlanta has no defense. Washington's just okay. Miami's not very good. New Orleans has no defense.
8-4 puts them at 9-7.
Yes. Now here's the thing about that. The Packers. Let's say the Minnesota Vikings win the division. Packers are a wild card. Let's just say. Where's the other wild card going to come from? The NFC East is so great that one of those teams might win 10 games? I don't know that.
The two of them are playing pretty well.
Fine, but neither. You look at the NFC East, rather. You're not like, boy, one of those teams is a lock to come out of the South.
What about the South?
Nothing there.
Right now?
Yeah.
But what if they lose to San Francisco, but Carolina gets going?
If Carolina gets going, by the way, and Carolina's looking at the Cardinals saying the same thing. Like, so I don't. It's wide open. If they're 1-4, I can't believe it. But if they're 1-4, they're still not out of the playoff hunt the way things are going.
I think 1-4 essentially seals your fate. because I think that I'm not going to predict that Carolina is going to continue to fall. I definitely think that Green Bay and Minnesota will make enough noise. And definitely there's a possibility that because of the NFC East being what it is, the way Peterson has turned things around, I mean, they went from the fastest offense with big difference in time of possession to the slowest offense in the league right now. I think them combined with Dallas can make things very interesting. I think Arizona's got to win tonight. I really do.
Well, it wouldn't hurt.
It's open. Looking forward to it.
That is what we commonly refer to in Atlanta as spazzing out. What?
You know what they say, Steven? They scared money don't make money.
Every year, people continue to make excuses for Tony Romo. They continue to lower the bar.
You got Tupac, you got Biggie, you got Jay-Z, you got Eminem. I'm gonna go with Tupac. I've never been an athlete, but I have been a leader of men.
Look at that duo. We now welcome rapper, producer, Atlanta superfan, friend of the show, T.I. to the desk. Tip, thank you so much for being here with us.
Good seeing you, big boy.
Hey, man, always a pleasure.
Absolutely.
Right on.
So you have
Likewise.
a new EP out, Us or Else, available exclusively on Tidal. Can you tell us about that new music and what message you want to send?
Well, it premiered exclusively on Tidal. It's now available everywhere where music is streamed and bought as we speak. And the message is basically, I just wanted to use my platform to create some healthy dialogue, man, to institute some change in the nation.
Now, when you say that, speak specifically about what change you would like to assist in instituting.
Well,
what's on your mind?
I want to institute change in the nation as far as the inequalities and the oppression that exists in America. And I mean, of course, we can't help but notice the consistent atrocities that continue to plague our communities as far as policemen overstepping the boundaries of their duties and stepping out of abusing their powers to kill and murder.
Talk to me about the level of sensitivity that you had, and just for the purposes of this show, I want to let everybody know this. You're a friend of the show. You've been on this show on many occasions, as we highlighted, and we're not going to revisit all the stuff that's going on with you because we've done that on this show and beyond. We don't owe that to our audience anymore. But I feel compelled to bring this up because one of the incidences that you had was with a police officer back years ago, you know, something in some Florida mall and all of this other stuff. So you've had history with police officers.
Absolutely.
I need you to talk about what you're trying to say and how those personal experiences you endured have influenced you, touching on this now.
Well, see, that's one thing that I think that you brought up that you know, is very, very key, because the law enforcement community and the government of America always preaches highly upon accountability when it comes to citizens who break the law and how they should be held accountable and brought to justice, and nobody should slip through the cracks. And, okay, but when it comes to police officers, their accountability is a lot less highlighted. You know, they don't necessarily think that they should be held accountable. Like, you know, I know when I have had my transgressions, it's always been, okay, you're gonna accept responsibility, you're gonna hold yourself accountable, you're going to endure or withstand whatever adversities or punishment that there is to follow this.
Community service or jail,
whatever it is, and you're gonna go through it and come out on the other side better. But whenever you have the opportunity for them to do the same thing, it's all but nothing.
I've heard you say support the idea of federal oversight, at least, for local police departments. Is that because a lot of, I mean, obviously this goes on in big cities too, and there are many examples, but oftentimes you'll see one of these bad encounters, and you get the sense that maybe it's a small town police department where they don't have the kind of training maybe or the applicants that they might have in a more metropolitan area, so there's uneven policing? Or why? Why do you think there should be federal oversight of local police?
Well, I think that if you have local jurisdiction over local policing, then it kind of makes it difficult for a fair and just process to be taken. I think that the same way back in the late 80s, early 90s, the same way that the crack law had been instituted due to the amount of atrocities that crack cocaine had plagued the community with, and they felt that it was necessary to upstream crack cocaine into a mandatory minimum status on a federal level. The same way they instituted the mandatory possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, a mandatory 5 years on a federal level because of how much gun violence had taken place to plague the nation. That is the same state of an epidemic crisis that we are in right now with police brutality.
So in other words, federal an epidemic crisis?
Absolutely, it's an epidemic crisis. How can you not have an epidemic crisis when you have innocent people losing their lives on a consistent basis? I mean, that is what we constitute an epidemic crisis.
So in other words, there are examples of when the federal government intercedes and imposes their authority on local jurisdictions if we as a society believe that it's important enough.
Absolutely.
And that this issue, you feel, as a society, we have not come to a consensus yet that it's important enough.
Absolutely. But you know why? Because in those other cases, that happened when, forgive me for saying, but when the epidemic started affecting white people. When crack cocaine reached out into the suburbs, when gun violence started affecting white homes, that's when, okay, it's
That's interesting because in the NFL, the protests, which, you know, Kaepernick's been on the record and many have been on the record, look, this is a domestic sporting event. We didn't interject politics into it. National anthem. The league did that in a show of patriotism. So since we're interjecting, it's not like an international event where we're showing one face as a nation.
Right.
So we're going to protest a domestic issue.
Sure.
And the reason that actually might have traction is because then that does start to affect everybody's lives, right? Oh, man, I just want to watch a football game and hear politics are coming into my world.
I don't want to hear about the innocent minorities who lost their lives along the way to make it into the people who didn't make it to see the football season opening. You know, and I'm sure Philando Castile and I'm sure that Alton Sterling, I'm sure they were football fans. I'm sure they would have loved to see some games.
Freddie Gray, the list goes on and on.
I mean, and I don't think that for us to say it's not time for us to deal with this, and we don't want to think about this right now. I mean, like, how could you say that about the loss of life?
Well, this is one of the things that you're focused on. My question to you is, would it be the only thing? And before you answer, hear where I'm coming from with this. The actions of brutality on the part of some police officers is something that cannot be ignored against minorities. There is no doubt about that. But we've also got a situation where there are a lot of black lives that are being lost, period. Chicago, as well as various other cities in this country. So as an artist, when you focus on some of the problems ailing our community, is this your focus, or are you focusing on all of that? Not just what happens to us, but what we're also doing to each other from time to time.
Well, absolutely. I do believe that, you know, unity is necessary. I do believe that. But also you cannot use excuses like that to give people an out as to how they cannot correct themselves, because there's negatives everywhere in our nation. You know, and when they use the term black on black crime, I actually heard this right here on ESPN. Yes. When they use the term black on black crime, they completely take away the notion of white people who kill white people. There's no white on white.
As Dr. Michael Eric Dyson, when we did the show in Chicago, he said whites are killing whites, Latinos are killing Latinos.
Absolutely.
It's neighbor on neighbor, so why are you focusing on black on black?
There's no white on white crime. There's no brown on brown crime. It's only black on black crime. So why are we focusing so much on that and not focusing on the violence that who proceeds to exist in America?
I totally agree with you, but let me tell you why I asked that question. Because I often say to a lot of white folks that I work with, it's a numbers game, too. When I'm on my radio show, for example, it's a numbers game. White folks make up 66% of the population. The Latino folks make up 17% of the population. The voting bloc that they have makes up about 27% of the population. If black folks are at 13% of the population, then because of the low number that we are,
right,
it profoundly affects us more so than it may affect other communities because our numbers are dwindling. That's my argument. What's yours?
I mean, I think that numbers definitely have something to do with it, but also the position that the communities have been put in. I believe that there have been staggering examples of how the African American communities have been targeted from the Contra scandal that led to the crack epidemic, that led to the war on drugs, that led to
mass incarceration,
that lead to police brutality. That, like, I mean, time after time after time, we have insufficient education in our communities. We have less opportunities as far as financially.
You're talking about structural. Institutional responsibility, and whenever this conversation comes up and people are talking about that structural and institutional, structural inequality based on institutional behavior in the past, we all know the history of this country. We know why black people are per capita less educated, less employed, et cetera, because of the pernicious effects of institutional racism, institutional racism, sorry. So whenever that conversation is brought up, you always hear voices talking about personal responsibility, and it's not that that's illegitimate, but that's not the conversation it seems that you're having. You're talking about institutional issues.
I do truly believe in personal responsibility, but when one takes personal responsibility and continues to have doors shut in their face and the goal line move whenever they think that, okay, well, this is what I have to do to take personal responsibility for myself, and this is what I have to do to institute change in my life, and they do that, and then the goalposts move.
Right.
And then the doors are shut. And then all of a sudden, now you have to deal with a police officer who's asking you why you're walking home from a job interview that you just got rejected from. And now you're supposed to handle yourself like a model citizen. Like, I don't understand how personal responsibility can come up when that is being taken and when accountability is being accepted and there's still no progress made in generations. The same things we're talking about now. You know, I listened to some tapes as I was recording my EP. The one thing I wanted to do is include some of our famous leaders who had spoken on our behalf over time. And I listened to a tape of Malcolm X, Martin Luther King,
Edgar Evers.
I did not hear Edgar Evers and Minister Farrakhan, but anyway, so Malcolm X is talking about police brutality as though he's talking about it right after Freddie Gray. It seems like he's talking about it right after Freddie Gray. Like, the things that he's talking about
still happen.
It's still happening. He's talking about the racial divide and the systemic inequalities in America. He's talking about it as though he's living right here today.
Decades later, it's the same reality.
The crazy thing is it actually has likely gotten much better. Now think about how bad it must have been if it's still like this now.
In some respects.
Or now we're just seeing it with camera phones and things like that.
Right,
we're more aware of it now.
We're more aware of it.
Guys, I'm sorry to cut you off. We do have to take a quick break, but I appreciate you continuing the dialogue with your music, your message, using your voice, Us or Else, and Title and Beyond. People can check that out. But your Falcons, can we talk about that? Can we go on the field next?
This is a wonderful week to talk about the Falcons.
You don't want to talk about it.
Absolutely, I would love to.
We're going to have
Today, let's talk about the Falcons.
Contenders, you will tell us that when First Take returns. Stay here.
You're watching First Take, presented by Bass Pro Shops.
T.I. still with us on behalf of his new EP, Us or Else, available exclusively on Tidal and Beyond. Big Atlanta sports fan, and your Falcons are off to a 3-1 start after beating the Panthers 48-33 last week behind over 500 yards passing by Matt Ryan. Unreal. 300 yards receiving by Julio Jones. Tip, those Falcons. Super Bowl this year? What do you think? Can it happen?
See, that's the thing, you see. Every time the Falcons have a monumental week, everyone begins to say, hey, are they Super Bowl? Hey, let's just get to the next week. We have to focus on the Broncos.
You know, this is bad.
We have to focus on
Oh, yes, you do.
We got to focus on Von Miller and
This is bad for you. He knows where I'm going with this. This is bad for you. This is bad for you. You see, usually, Max, you don't notice when T.I. and I run across one another, it's always when the Falcons are doing well. And then he's smiling, he's chilling out, and then he puts the Mac on, he relaxes, he does the gangster lean, and like, we got this. He forgets we're talking about Atlanta here, which is practically allergic to winning. You had the Braves that went to the World Series about 14, 15 times, won one World Series.
Wait a minute.
The Atlanta Hawks ain't won a damn thing.
So you jinx
the Falcons has, of course he's jinxing
No, you jinx it. You jinx it.
Tip is sitting there going, now why you want to go and do that?
I'm just here we go. Why
you want to go and do that?
That's what it is. And I understand.
See, now listen, man. Now, what you're doing is you are hoping that we adopt a loser's mentality.
Actually, that's not true.
No,
that's not true.
Now you can lose. That doesn't make you a loser unless you accept.
Only by the definition of the word.
Unless you accept a loser's mentality, you become a loser when you assume you're going to lose.
Finally, someone said something intelligent on this show.
You see what I'm saying?
Well, how about this? What are you gonna do? Like, you look at this team, the offense can take care of business, obviously.
Right.
What about this defense, Tip? What's up with the defense? Can they be good enough to actually make a postseason run?
I think we have to get past the first round to see that.
Being a little bit cautious this time around. I mean, last time they were in a similar position, Max, he was sticking out. We got this. We gonna be all right. Wait and see. It seems like you learned your lesson. Just a touch.
But that, I consider myself moderately intelligent, and I do know that the definition of insanity is going about the same thing the same way and expecting a different result.
That's true.
So therefore, I am going to modestly and humbly say we're doing very, very well right now, and I have all the faith in the world in them, and I believe that should they wake up every Sunday ready to play and Monday, that they can make it to the postseason.
What about your quarterback?
Once we make it past there, he's the #1 in the league.
No question. Right now he is. But I would describe Matt Ryan until this season as a B+ who sometimes gets mistaken for an A. Is he now? But so far this year, he's the best quarterback in football.
Sure.
No question about that. Is that a mirage, or is he actually now the best quarterback in football?
Well, he's actually now the best quarterback in football. I mean, now will he be persistent and consistent with his? Yeah, will he be consistent with his playing? That has yet to be seen. I believe he can. I believe he has the tools and the talent to do so.
I think
that the actions will have to show us there.
You know why I need to pause you? Because I have the schedule. Let me read the schedule to you.
I've seen the schedule too. I've seen the schedule too.
He turned to his right and closed his eyes because it's hurting him right now. Let me just read the schedule right here, Tia. At Denver.
Yes.
At Seattle. That's the next 2 weeks.
Yes.
That's the next 2 weeks.
I'm not concerned about Seattle.
Oh.
I'm not concerned about Seattle.
Oh.
At Seattle.
I'm not concerned about Seattle.
At Seattle.
I'm concerned about Denver.
I'll be looking. I'm gonna be looking for you in 2 weeks. That's ridiculous what you just said. That's almost blasphemous.
Listen,
you're not worried about Seattle at Seattle?
No, I am not.
Why not?
I mean, simply because I feel that Atlanta has a habit of winning the games that they're supposed to lose and losing the games they're supposed to win.
That's fair.
They have a great offense.
That's how I know Atlanta.
Seattle's offensive line might make Atlanta's defense look decent.
The games they're supposed to win and the games they're supposed to lose.
But see, now you're just being mean. You know,
I'm being factual. They haven't been relevant for the last couple of years, man.
But this is not true. This is not true.
What am I missing?
Because we've had the same conversation the last couple of years.
What am I missing?
And they made it to the playoffs, all except last year.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Excuse me. The Atlanta Falcons have been a huge disappointment the last couple of years.
Listen, man. Listen. Hey, have you toured the new dome?
You know,
And he had
that's
a
the
chance to
problem.
the
You know what?
new dome.
That's the damn
He had a
problem
chance
right
to
there.
get-
That's
You
the
sound
problem
like
right
a
there.
PR dude right there.
You need
Let's
a
talk
dome.
about the team.
They need a dome.
always
because
gotta
in a
stadium.
half- in a
Always
half-
gotta speak positive.
Do you know that in a
Gotta speak positive
half
into
an
the-
inch of snow caused traffic jams for hours in Atlanta? This is why they need a damn
Not
dome.
used to snow.
A half an inch?
Yeah.
A half an inch caused
But listen,
hours of traffic jams.
We also have ice storms. It's the ice that actually shuts the city down more so than
all
the snow.
hills and all of that stuff.
Not mad at
Because
the
y'all
ice, though.
living in the burbs.
Zone
You know
1 to
what?
zone 6.
Hey, you know
Shut
what?
down.
You look
Football
very
team
comfortable in Atlanta when I see you. You look very comfortable. You enjoy yourself a lot. You enjoy yourself a lot in my
I wonder
city.
why.
You know what I'm
I
saying?
wonder why.
That is
Okay.
true. That
But
is. I
bottom
cannot
line
deny
is-
it.
You enjoy yourself
I can't deny
a
that.
lot in my
Falcons
city.
are 3-1. The rest of the division, including the Panthers, 1-3. Real quick, before we let you go, can we get your thoughts on the Warriors? Stephen A. said it was the weakest move ever by KD to join them. Where do you
I
stand?
said it was the weakest move by a superstar.
Okay, apologize. Weakest move by a superstar.
I think that it was a very, very, very controversial move, and I think that it took a lot. It took a lot for KD to make that decision, and it's very easy for us to say that right now in the off season. But should they get to clicking and should they become the best basketball team of the year, I think that will. The same as it did with LeBron. When LeBron went to Miami.
I gotta stop you. I gotta stop that.
The same as it did, but the only thing is they were just beaten by the Warriors in the postseason.
There we go. And the Warriors team that was 73-9 that you had up 3-1 in the Western Conference Finals.
Right.
LeBron went from Cleveland to Miami. They got bounced in the first round. There was still KG and those boys in Boston.
Right.
I mean, come on.
Oh,
the two don't. I know we
stop.
gotta
They
go.
made a super team.
Stop it.
Then he saw Kyrie and the number one pick. He made another super team.
I think KD had already made a decision to leave, and I think there was only one choice for him to go to. Honestly.
Fair.
One of the three best players in the world going.
I just think they had an internal disagreement.
Thank you so much for being here
Well,
with us.
thank
We
you.
appreciate it. Us or else, download it now. Meanwhile, two huge MLB playoff games tonight. Rangers at Dodgers. Max, we'll start with you. Excuse me, Blue Jays. Who you got?
At Blue Jays at Rangers.
Yes, I totally, I botched that. I apologize.
I think Toronto has a real home field advantage. They seem to a lot of guys who go to Toronto seem to hit better over there. They got a real good pitcher with a solid tracks record in the postseason in Estrada going for them. I like Texas at Texas with Hamels on the mound.
Okay.
So do I. I'm going to go with Texas, but not just because of Hamels on the mound. By the way, 15 postseason appearances, 3.03 ERA. But I also like Beltran and Beltran as well, and I think they're going to make some noise in this series.
Beltran, a legitimate postseason hitter. Beltran's a guy who actually does hit better in the postseason than most.
Red Sox, Indians?
Red Sox.
Oh, you can't go Boston, can you?
I'm going to have to.
Oh, it's tough for a New Yorker.
It kills me, but I'm going to have to.
Tough, but somebody's got to do it. Thank you all for being with us. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great night and enjoy the game. Zuck.